And gentlemen, I'm meadsyreplays. Welcome back to the channel. Now in today's video, it is that time again where Halloween is getting closer, and when Halloween gets closer, we all know when it comes down to Blitz, there are a few tanks that come for sale, and these are of course tanks like the Dracula and things like the Smasher and the Hellsin, etc. But today we are going to focus on the Dracula, because the Dracula is an amazing tank. It really is an amazing tank. It's a fun tank. I mean, the stats on it are not the best, but it is, even now, years after it's released, is still one of the most fun tanks to play, and it is a go-to tank. Now of course, because it is Halloween, I was going to make this video beforehand anyway, and then I just see that there are some Halloween crates in the store, which I'm not going to recommend, because you only get, what is it, a 5% chance, I believe, 3% chance for the Dracula Hellsin profile background, 5% chance for the tank. So yeah, you can get all of these tanks, and again, as I said, I would stay away from the crates if I'm honest. But yeah, that's that. The Dracula it looks fantastic. Of course, after years of it being released, Wargaming decided, not that one, that's more recalled, Wargaming decided to give it another legendary camouflage, which is great, which is fantastic. So you can either have it standard, which it had for years, you couldn't put a camouflage on it, and then finally they did give it a camouflage, the two-faced camouflage. So the stats of the tank, as I've said, the stats are not the best. The stats really aren't great. It's got no armor whatsoever. 30mm is the best you're gonna get. And then the DPM 2138. It's not bad DPM, but it isn't the best. There's better mediums out there for DPM. The reload is 6.3 seconds. Penetration 155 on your AP. And so again, if you're coming up against the tier 8s, you really are going to struggle. But 237 on your APCR. Again, you're going to struggle. But I actually run this with the rammer. I don't run it with calibrated shells. I run it with the rammer, and that's for one reason, because of the how fast the tank is. It's not a tank that you're just going to sit there and face the enemy. You're going to try and use the mobility to get around the tanks, that is why I run it with the rammer and not calibrated shells. So you've got a 225 alpha on your AP, 190 on your APCR, and 270 on your HE. Aim time isn't the best either at 3.4, neither is the gun dispersion at 0.353. However, it does have 10 degrees of gun depression, and the speed is 65 kilometers per hour. So let's get into some games, and just to show you how fun this tank actually is. So we went and played 2 battles in the tank. The first one, I mean, there's nothing special with the first one, honestly. This is, I don't even know why I'm adding this in there. But yeah, I mean, the tank, if it comes for sale, it definitely is worth thinking about, because they are fun tanks. However, these tanks, the Hellsin, the Dracula, the Annihilator, the Smasher, they hardly ever come for sale directly. There's always a different way that you have to purchase these tanks. Usually they do come in the Christmas fair, the auction, so do look out for that, because that's not going to be that long. That's literally, we're almost halfway through October already, so you're looking at December, so a couple of months, then I'm sure that these tanks will come back in the auction. They always do, and that is where a lot of people do pick up their Halloween tanks. But other than that, like, to think that I got this tank for absolutely free, when these are the kind of events that used to be in What Blitz. It's not like it is now. I got this tank for free, and what made this event so good is you had the choice to either get this tank. It wasn't just this tank. You had the choice to get this or the Hellsin for free, and both of them at the time were completely broken. Absolutely completely broken, and they almost ruined the game, because, you know, if you had a platoon in a Dracula, then it's almost a guaranteed win. If you had a platoon in a Hellsin, almost a guaranteed win. If you had a platoon in one Hellsin and one Dracula, almost a guaranteed win. But it wasn't that even that it was overpowered. If you're running it with 2 Draculas in a platoon, it wasn't even that it was overpowered, like that made me want to play it. It was just the fun factor, you know. It was a fun time in Blitz when you're just running around with 2 Draculas, because when you are platooning in Draculas, you don't really play it like you would two mediums, where you go spot, maybe you sit there like we are doing kind of like here. If you're in a platoon with 2 Draculas, 9 times out of 10, you do not stop. You do not stop the tank. You just keep running around and you don't stop. And that is what made these tanks mega fun, especially the Dracula when it first come into the game. And even now, years after release, it is still a mega fun tank to play. I remember back in the days when this tank was all new and everybody was talking about this tank. We used to do a lot of challenges, you know, especially in live streams. I mean, I'm sure you'll be able to find them in live streams somewhere, where you would be in a platoon with 2 Draculas and we would say, right, you go left, I go right. We've got to go around the whole of the map, the whole of the enemy team, they're through their spawn, we're not allowed to stop, and the first one to make it back to our spawn wins. And honestly, like, I don't really do too much like that now, because like you are kind of throwing the game, but if you was on the enemy team and you was like a slow heavy, and all of a sudden you've just made it out of spawn, you've got 1 Dracula coming one way, 1 Dracula coming the other way. Honestly, sometimes they just didn't know what to do. They was looking like, what the heck is going on? They didn't know who to look at. We weren't stopping. We would shoot on our way past, but yeah, we would 9 times out of 10 we wouldn't make it back to spawn. But it was fun, and that is what this game is all about. You know, we had a lot of fun. And if you haven't got the Dracula, or if you've never played the Dracula, honestly, you are missing out. And I would honestly try to find a way to get the Dracula at least. You know, back in the day, it was all about the Helsing and the Dracula. It was the Helsing and Dracula show, and that is what it was. But nowadays it's not like that. You know, there's a thing called power creep. The Helsing, yeah, there's no even point playing the Helsing no more. There's another tank called the Annihilator for that, because the Helsing was one of a kind. You know, there was a tank, nothing like it, where it had the double shot, and everyone was like, whoa, it's like a shotgun, a double-barreled shotgun. You fire once and 2 shells come out. There was nothing ever like it in the game. And eventually it was like, yeah, this tank is completely broken. But now the introduction of tanks like the Annihilator, where it's got 3 shells, and even when Wargaming announced the Annihilator, we were like, Wargaming, the Helsing is OP and it's got 2 shells. The Annihilator has 3 shells and it's got armor, it's got the speed boost. What are you playing at? Why are you doing this? And it literally, because of that you don't really see the Helsing anymore, and it is a shame. And it's the same with the Dracula. You don't really see the Dracula anymore, because there's just better tanks. But even though there's better tanks, even to this day, as I've said, there might be better tanks. The Dracula isn't the best of tanks when it comes down to stats, but hand on heart, it is still one of the most fun tanks to play in the game, especially when you are playing it in a platoon. So if you haven't got the Dracula, do wait till Christmas, because it will be there and you will be able to pick it up for gold. So for now, I wouldn't get the crates, I would wait, but if you haven't got it, I would try and get it eventually. So I hope you enjoyed today's video, guys. I'm meadsy69 and I will catch you all soon. Bye bye.